Okay, good evening, here and on the Zoom. And if you are on Zoom, if we could ask you to, in the chat, just sign in your name so we have a sense of who's here. We don't actually have anyone else in the room who we don't know, but that will help us keep track of ourselves. We have a relatively short meeting tonight because the select board is going to be moving in it for a meeting at 6:30. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for us to take another look at the current drafts of amendments to the or additions to the LUZO that might be proposed for warrant articles for this year's town meeting. And we might want to take, if I hazard a guess as to the ones that might be shorter, we have four. We have amendments to the mobile home definitions. We have the certificate of occupancy. We have a shoreland commercial district change, and then we have the solar and potentially a new solar installation ordinance. So let's start with the two, at least on paper, minor changes, the shoreland commercial district. Let's see if we can clear that off the agenda.
Paper copies?
You have?
Yeah.
Sure did.
Unless have you changed them at all? since
Nope.
you- okay.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'll
This
take
one's
that
shoreline.
question.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
I just have a bit trying to.
Alright, so,
See if we have an occupancy. Just in
That was
case.
shoreline.
oh, this is, no, this is,
No.
I got the certificate of occupancy. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Is that what that
We can
is?
do that. I
we
don't.
can do it.
All right, let's do
Let's
that.
just do that one.
I gave it the wrong label.
So the,
I think we should wait on this one.
The certificate of occupancy,
Yeah,
okay, and the
And-
reason,
could we give a reason for that?
I'm gonna talk to Andy and ask him. Well,
Is that because you came up with a different date?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just because I saw the old zoning, the old building code that was adopted in 1970
oh,
through, and then it said dash next through 1998. Said certificate occupancies were required back then, and I thought it was 1998. That's why I thought I saw the first mention of certificate occupancies were required within the 1998 amendment to the building code, but I was looking through it the other day during a court hearing. And I saw in 1970 the same language, so.
So the only purpose of this is to clarify at what point going forward, you have to have a certificate of occupancy,
Correct.
and you're not clear about the date.
Not yet.
And if we can clarify that date, then this is pretty straightforward. And we
It would be, just
Yeah.
adding, a matter of adding a date.
Okay, all right,
okay,
thank you.
thanks, Kim.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah, yes, that's
Discrepancy.
right, but yeah.
All right, now,
I made two copies of the same one.
oh,
so-
okay,
Oh, that's okay.
so,
Right label.
Do you have the shoreline,
I have it right here.
but you don't have one to pass out?
Nope.
all right, so let me just read it if you don't have it.
Oh,
Oh, do you have?
I was gonna give you guys my copy.
Okay,
But,
Charlotte ordinance dated May 6, 2025, and entitled amendments to the land use zoning ordinance regarding residential use in the shoreland commercial district be enacted as set forth below. The explanation, this article clarifies that the dimensional standards of the adjacent shoreland residential district is to be used when a primary residential use is proposed in the shoreland commercial district. So and then it goes down to section 3, section 3.5, dimensional requirements for districts, minimum area, width of lots, setbacks, etc. G, primary residential use in a shoreline commercial district must meet the dimensional requirements of the adjacent shoreline residential district. This requirement does not apply to projects that include covenants held by a qualified workforce housing entity. So if you want to build a house in a shoreline commercial zone, you've got to do it on a lot that meets,
well, if you have property in the shoreline commercial
yeah,
and you want to develop the lot, you have to go by the adjacent shoreline residential zoning district dimensional requirements. You can't go by, specifically if a lot is fully or partially within 250 feet of the shoreline buffer, shoreline zone buffer. you can't use the residential district that's behind you, that is not shoreland zone. And that's what somebody was trying to do.
Oh, yes, what
Oh.
are you talking about? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Oh.
yeah.
So somebody was, but this one was a little different, because they were trying to create a lot within the shoreline commercial zoning district. And they wanted to use the residential lot behind them that was out behind the 250 shoreline zoning. They wanted to use that dimensional requirements, but they couldn't because residential inland zoning doesn't have shore frontage requirements.
Right.
Because it doesn't front on navigable waters, so you can't do that.
Mhm.
So you have to go by the adjacent shoreland residential zoning district,
Mhm.
and that's what we're trying.
Now, if you were
clarify.
trying to build a shoreline commercial business there, the standards would be different.
Yeah, because this is primary residential use.
Yes.
Primary means you wanna build a house only,
Yes,
but if you wanted to have an apartment, you know, like a commercial business and have an apartment above, but the primary use of the property is a commercial boating facility, and you wanna
Yeah.
have an apartment above,
Mhm.
I believe you can do that, cause the primary use would be the boat business, and then secondary would be the apartment.
and that is the purpose of a shoreline commercial district in
Correct.
order to facilitate that sort of development.
So we're just adding the word shoreland in there. Zoning district, residential, shoreland, residential
Good.
zoning, instead of saying just adjacent residential district.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody
So
have
there's a
that?
policy question at some point, but
Mhm.
primarily, like the shoreline commercial district is intended to be for shoreline commercial activities, but there's this weird. Maybe good, maybe bad provision in the ordinance that allows for, if somebody says, I just wanna build a house here.
Mhm.
You could take that whole shoreline commercial property and turn it into a residential property, but in doing so, you have to meet the standards of the closest adjacent district.
Shoreline
And all we're just doing, really, that's change here is just adding the word shoreland
Yeah,
to footnote G, which just clarifies, yes, that's what we were
Right.
talking
Yeah,
about.
footnote G is under the shoreline commercial only. It's
right,
got the zoning and then the G beside it,
right.
which tells you whether.
Well, the policy issue is one that maybe we shouldn't decide, but, this committee shouldn't decide.
I think it's an interesting comp plan question.
Yeah.
For guidance, and
Yeah.
then we'll end up coming back to
Yes.
this committee, but.
Yes.
The policy question, that larger policy question would be. Why do you wanna have this much of a. Out in your shoreline commercial districts
Right,
as a question? If you don't want them to be shoreline commercial districts, rezone them to be residential districts.
yeah,
But. That's not, I'm just pointing it out.
right, right, no, it's.
So I was like, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting that that's allowed.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Gil, just as a side note, under the explanation, I might add a sentence that. Just to clarify that it's footnote G in table 3.5 under the explanation.
Okay. Okay. Is everybody else set with that? Everybody have questions about that? Mhm.
Clear, but
Mhm.
That would be.
It's pretty good. All right, let's do the mobile manufactured homes. Do we have copies of that?
I have copies of that,
Okay.
for sure.
In this one, we really don't have a choice, right?
Well, I think we have a few things to talk about, and some of which we don't have a choice for. Yep. And some of it, do we want to do? A couple of different, there's a few ways to do it. You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. That'd be helpful.
All right, so in this approach, what we are talking about the last time is the state has recently updated some some laws related to manufactured homes. And what we need to do in the town of Mount Desert is go back to our a couple of different things, which one is not related to this LUZO change, the other is, and that is to repeal some old standards that are in conflict with the state's rules related to mobile home parks essentially. And so I have to figure out with Andy Hamilton how we're gonna just write the warrant article to say, you know, repeal and replace something that is actually like written in a warrant article, but not necessarily like as an ordinance. so I have some questions about that, but. So for this change, there are some implications for basically 6B12 and 6B14. And as we're going through the law, the questions start to pop up in my mind about like how we want to do this. So the way I approach 6B12 modification was on the strike throughs and underlines that you see before you are basically taking out, some language that says as defined and just going right straight to the standards that are in the ordinance. So the underlines are basically,
The ordinance or the statute?
what was that?
Yeah, in the ordinance or
In
the
the law,
statute?
sorry,
Okay.
in the law.
Thank you.
But the law actually takes it a little bit farther, so basically, what the law says is you have to allow, manufactured homes or essentially mobile homes. Call them that for this discussion. Anywhere that you're allowed to have a single family residential structure. And the town is allowed to put design standards in place. Such as making sure it has a foundation, or it does say pitched shingled roof in the law.
Does it have to be shingle?
Yes,
That's
okay,
what-
That's already
That
underlined.
was my
Because I was
question.
thinking, can it be
So,
metal
I
or?
don't think the law says you have to do that. I think we could make it say, we could say a pitched roof or
Right,
something like that.
Yeah,
And then the
Pitched roof.
reality is, you just can't put those design standards in place. For the purposes of not allowing those types of,
Right.
structures.
right.
So we can have that discussion, but let me just sort of like breeze through sort of what the bigger picture is, and then we can get back to the specifics.
No,
So
so
then, yeah,
included but not limited to a pitched, shingle roof,
right,
permanent foundation, and exterior siding that is residential in appearance.
yeah, so what I did in this one is I didn't add including but limited to a pitched shingle roof, which is what's in the law. That's the sidebar. I just copied that.
You should-
I just kept what the town had already required for manufactured homes. So we can make
So we
that,
had it anyways.
you already have it, but you require a pitched shingled roof,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
necessarily a metal roof or a pitched roof. you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so the other question for me was, well, what's a pitched roof? If you're on
Yeah.
the planning board or you're Kim, do you really? And then do we want to have a definition of pitched roof?
Well, they've got
Different
212
pitches
in
of
the,
roofs?
there's 212 in
Right.
the,
That's what the law says.
yeah.
You could do. You don't have to do that,
It discriminates against flat roofs, but.
or different pitches of roofs.
No, it's got flat roofs, and I mean, they shouldn't.
Right. Right,
But what's to say you can't have a flat roof?
To me, the point is to allow,
like
Maybe
the
you should just
elementary
say a
school.
roof.
Right.
well, they all have roofs, but the point to me is to allow. You already, and the other thing that I found out when I was doing this research is mobile homes are already allowed anywhere in town, because it's part of the definition of dwelling is that, so they're already allowed. This
Yeah.
provision, 6B12, really was just that it's really those design standards. And so we have a couple of choices. One, we could just delete 6B12 altogether and not worry about any of this stuff. Or we could continue to add some, design standards like either what the law says or some version of whatever, sort of
Well, did we have like a certain age and newer?
in the old definition
Yeah.
perhaps. Cause
Now,
it
this one
says.
is, in the state one is just
Changed, right?
doesn't have-
any
Yep.
individual year.
Yeah, the only thing that our current ordinance says is manufactured homes or housing as defined in section 8, which if you go back to section 8, we've already updated it last year or the year before. And then all these other standards. And so I basically, in this discussion, made it the same. I try to keep the standards. And so the policy choice is, do you want to have standards, yes or no? And if you do, then you're kind of limited to what kind of standards you're allowed to have.
So we have to, if we're gonna have policy standards, we have to find a balance between not making it so onerous that it's not going to allow people who aren't millionaires to build houses. Or, provide shelter for themselves. But on the other hand, it would be good, it seems, to have some sort of standards that integrates them into the existing communities as successfully as is reasonably possible.
Sure.
So there we talk about the siding, that,
Yep.
the foundation, the,
Yep.
Are you getting into design review for this particular?
Nope. Not design review, there's no design.
Okay.
It would be just like, I gotta get a building permit, Kim would be like, all right, you gotta have shingles. Or whatever. Or not shingles, you have to have exterior siding that is residential in appearance.
Do we have to say that though? I mean, do
Nope,
we have
we
to
don't
have
have to
that
say
in
any of
there?
that.
I mean, do we have to have standards like they have here in the law? I mean,
Nope.
I mean, somebody applies for a house permit, they don't. I don't
What
have to
is-
say, are you having what siding? Are you having siding? What kind of
Correct.
siding? Is it gonna be vinyl? What shingles?
I don't
What are
think
you
you
doing?
need to have any, I think you could delete
Hmm.
6B12 altogether. If we want, if that's really a choice. I didn't do that, but that's what I was just trying to reflect the conversation we had last time. And
I think
not
we
like,
should get rid of them.
I didn't make a policy change in my suggestion. I think if you're trying to be ultimately flexible and allow this as a housing type, do you really want to have design standards that are different from any other residential design standard?
well, you probably don't have it, it's different, I mean, it is a different type of housing, but.
Yep.
How different is it from
Is that-
modular housing?
It says,
which
yeah,
is-
we may establish design criteria. We don't have to under the state statute that's
Yeah.
designed.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'd take it out.
I think a modular, so we can get to this, but the other reason I added the full definition that is in law for manufactured homes is because it does make a distinction between what you would consider like a modular home.
Yeah.
And a manufactured, like a
Yeah,
manufactured home.
they're
So like, what we think of as like a mobile home is what they're calling. It still falls under the manufactured home thing, but
Yeah.
there is a distinction between the two.
And it is distinguished from campers and,
Correct. Campers is a whole
Campers are-
different definition. Actually, there is no definition of camper, it's
No.
recreational vehicle.
Right, RVs, yeah.
So we gotta talk about that too.
okay. So the initial impression is to remove the design standards for the manufactured homes.
Yep.
Is that what I'm hearing?
And I think the simple answer, like talking about it, is the impetus for this change is the state law. It requires
Yes,
that you allow mobile homes everywhere.
right,
And we already do that through other provisions in the ordinance, and we don't really need this section.
okay,
If that makes sense.
right,
Like this is sort of redundant and it
It is.
sort of harkens back to
Yeah,
a different time for that particular.
I think this
type
was
of-
added to the ordinance when manufactured homes started becoming more prominent.
And
Instead
they're-
of just stick built.
And those are different,
Yeah.
like when you think of going to like. That's a wholly different type of house. So the question, so I'm just gonna strike through. everything.
Mhm.
6B12 is out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great. So that changes this. I may end up doing two different warrant articles for this one. But 6B14. The reason I got into it is because this one, the point of this section is because. I think people were probably trying to use older mobile homes or other things for temporary dwellings. And the reason, there's many reasons why you don't want to do that, but we also want to be flexible. So that if you're building a house, you can stay in your camper or whatever for a short time.
Mhm.
And so. When you read this. There is no definition of mobile home, there is no definition of camper, trailer, so it's really just recreational vehicles. So I'm just making that modification so that we're not running afoul of the new state law. And it's more clear what we're talking about.
Is it 90 days per calendar year or 90 days? Just 90 days, no matter how long it takes to construct your home?
And can it be renewed? 'Cause
Right, that's-
I'm thinking, as someone who's built a couple houses, 90 days
I
is
think it was
gonna get
intended for,
framing up.
I mean, of course, I wasn't here when they wrote this, but I think it's intended for just the temporary use of the project. You know, for a project of on your property, whether you're gutting your house and you're gonna redo it. Or you're building a new house. I mean, it's intended temporary for, I would say, for that project.
I
That's how
understand
I
that,
understand it.
Yes,
but many times it takes a long time to build a house. So if
Yes.
you only have temporary housing for 90 days, can that 90-day,
No.
Can
This
be
is a
renewed.
total of 90 days.
Period.
And so if we wanted to clarify that, we probably should.
we should,
Yeah,
And
we should.
the other question would be, if you're saying 90 days is not really enough, do we want to bump it up?
Well, maybe we
Well,
want
you
to have
gotta be
them,
careful, your individual private campsites, they have to start, put in a septic system, they have to put in like it's a residence, resident.
Yep, but you only get 190 days. Or so you only get 90 days.
Yeah, that's, no, but what I'm saying, if you wanna bump it up, be careful, you don't bump it up to 180 days,
And that's what it,
6 months, because that's getting into having to put in a full septic system to serve your temporary RV, and then people sometimes will not get out of them,
they forget to finish their house.
that, yeah.
Or an in-law, or someone moves
Yeah.
into the camp or the,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, so this is the first part of this section basically says. No recreational vehicle shall be used for human habitation unless it is in a campground or individual private campsite which has been established in accordance with the provisions of this ordinance, period. That makes sense, right?
right,
Mhm.
And then the second part says, except if you're gonna do this, if you're building something, you need some place to stay temporarily while you're building, you can do this with a permit from Kim.
and what would be the requirements in order to get that permit for sanitation and that sort of
Well,
stuff?
they have to give you a sanitary plan, what are they gonna do, how are they gonna empty their waste, are they gonna have a pumping company come in and pump it?
Yeah.
Every week, every month, whatever,
Yeah.
and then it has other criteria that you can't, you can't put a full foundation.
Mhm.
Um,
Right,
it's,
okay.
it's intended only temporary.
Sure, sure, but I also agree from experience that 90 days, if you're trying to do that and be on site. 90 days isn't gonna get you very far into the typical building project, so,
Can they renew it for another 90 days instead of just making it
It's not in the
180?
ordinance right now, like
No.
that, 90 days is 90
90
days.
days.
right, this is the existing ordinance, so.
Yeah.
We're going beyond what, yeah,
It's rare that I've issued these permits.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, but with the housing crunch that's going on right now
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, to me, the housing crunch question would be, anybody's gonna come in and people are gonna look for. Shelter in an affordable way, which is completely rational, but the town doesn't want. People to use RVs, which aren't designed for full-time. Living
residents.
to be
Mhm. Mhm.
potentially like. Living.
Yeah.
They don't.
they're not intended to be a dwelling unit.
Yeah,
right.
Right,
exactly, unless they have certain things.
Well, after that, yeah, you get into different, they're gonna hook up to power, they gotta have 2 means of egress, they gotta multi that, I mean, it's,
oh, yeah, okay,
they can't just.
So
Live in
maybe
it.
we should just leave it alone.
if that's what,
For 90 days.
Also
90
is-
days.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yes.
mean, to drive it home, the intent is for it to be temporary. I know 90 days isn't long,
I mean, I guess if you just
maybe,
said,
you can put a footnote in there saying maybe the code officer can extend it if she sees the circumstance.
I don't wanna put you in that
Well,
position, because
I'm
that's,
just saying that,
Yeah.
or you'd say 90 days per calendar year.
no.
Yeah,
I would, a
That's-
total of maybe, to clarify.
Not exceeding 90 days.
then you're gonna have some enforcement issues, cause, or,
But because what's 90 days? I'm not gonna go check it every day, but sometimes I have neighbors that tell me,
Yeah.
it's been there that many, that many
Yeah.
days and it's unsightly and.
yeah,
Okay,
alright.
I mean,
Manufacturing,
typically what I've done in the past with ones that I've permitted, I give them the deadline date on the permit.
Yeah.
And
That's a
then if
good-
it's, then I go and look at it, I put it in my calendar, and
Yeah.
I'll go look to make sure it's gone.
okay,
So the next page, this may change the way that we approach. These might get broken into 2 different warrant articles.
Hmm.
That way, this one doesn't get like torpedoed, or something gets freaked out about this one, or whatever. But I was wondering, given the new law, whether or not we want to change the manufactured home definition to just be that, which is underlined. So it actually includes something it includes like what we're talking about for mobile homes and modular homes.
Is this the same paragraph that we added under
Yep,
section
So I
7
think-
permits?
I believe so. I have to go look. I didn't look actually, but the definition is there. If this is what the definition is in the law.
I just wanna see if it's the same.
This portion that's underlined.
Yeah.
Is the substitution.
Same
It's
language,
basically a cut and paste except for tweaked a few things to make it, not state law.
So does this include panelized houses?
Yes. Penalized
Not
houses? No,
penalized,
I don't
it
think
shouldn't.
so. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
Great.
Penalized is like stick built in a barn, in a shop.
yeah, exactly.
And then you just.
As
take a
opposed
stick and
to,
bring it to your house.
here's half your house and here's
Mhm.
the other half and you're
Correct.
stitching together.
No, we didn't add, unless it's in the definitions.
It isn't, because,
It's not,
this is the definition from.
yeah, but I'm wondering if, could we added,
I thought we added more too, I remember that.
just that small paragraph, but we added this.
Do we want to say in
which
paragraph
talks about
2
statute.
that it does not include panelized buildings? Do we need to do
I
that?
don't think we need
Because
to do that.
So what is the ASTICU?
structures
considered what they're doing,
transportable
their
in
little
one
pods
or
or-
more sections.
Modular.
This is
That's a
modular.
modular, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, manufactured, not modular, manufactured. They're, individual cottages, but they look like one family dwellings.
Yeah,
We could probably stick with
Hmm.
the current definition. And this is just a discussion piece, because I think that this part is more clear that there are two types of manufactured housing.
I think we added that.
Well, is it basically with chassis or, or in section, in chunks? Is that
Yep,
on its,
yeah,
is its own chassis or
Yep.
a defining issue?
more or less,
Yeah. So that's what we would commonly call a trailer,
correct.
right? And then you have the
And then
modular homes.
transport.
Or the other thing I thought about was, do we just want to keep manufactured housing? And then create a definition for modular home? Might be easier, but
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Well, haven't,
we don't have that definition yet,
We don't
and I
have
think
we don't have
my
modular.
Well,
observation.
what is
that
2
it's-
then?
These 2 is the new, what I just added that in, but we could, there's 2 approaches to this. One is do what the state did, which is classify both mobile homes and modular homes as manufactured homes.
Mhm.
We could do that, or we could have a manufactured home, which is basically a portion of the paragraph above, and then one A and 2 would be its own definition.
That'd be
Mod 2 would be called modular home, and that's its own definition.
I guess I'm confused about the significance of the change because they're both different types of manufactured housing.
According to the state.
Yes. So. I'm not seeing the trouble with the way that you've worded it here.
Yeah, I don't-
You've got,
Have a problem with it either. I just there's an option. If it's,
I just don't see what, yeah, I mean, I think you got manufactured home slash housing, then have modular homes.
and you break it down by those that are modular and those
Yeah.
that are,
so keep it, the way-
Modular and manufactured.
keep this.
well, they're both all manufactured.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
there's modular and there's
But
a
I-
trailer,
no, I
what
think
we would
should
have called
have
trailer,
modular above that,
Mobile.
too.
mobile home, yeah.
So Kim's saying that what we would do is create a definition called modular homes. So number 2 would be its own definition. It wouldn't fall under manufactured homes.
But what does it have to comply with? Is it just no different?
Gotta comply with the statutes of 1095-1,
Okay,
951, excuse me.
Right. But I think if you did a search in the ordinance, there wouldn't be anything about modular homes. I can do it tomorrow, but I'm almost sure.
oh, you mean our
There's
existing
no
one?
standards. There's no separate standard for modular home.
Right.
It's just-
Both under the same type.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's gonna be any separate standard for any of them.
Well, I think you do have to have a manufactured home, or I think there's places in the ordinance where that does fall, I believe. I'll
Manufacturing.
have to double check. And we're gonna. Long term. Maybe not this year, but the reason why I have like. Mobile home parks, because when you go down this rabbit hole,
Mhm.
trying to be compliant. Is that. The definition of mobile home park in the ordinance isn't the way it should be, so that needs to be corrected. And then there's a bunch of other standards that you might want to add. Like a mobile home park lot or a mobile home subdivision or development, those are different things.
And we are going to change the table of uses.
Probably they don't allow them anywhere.
I think that they do though.
No, I meant under mobile home parks.
Well, we're repealing that ordinance.
Oh, yeah, oh, I know.
And so a mobile home park is its own thing. A mobile
Right.
home subdivision is something that you go get subdivision.
Yeah,
permits
it's
for.
mobile home
Yes.
and or house trailer parks.
Yep,
Right. So,
and I added manufactured housing as part of the definition of residential dwelling unit because there is no term in mobile home in the ordinance. So you have to change that. So that is where that
So-
term would come into play.
right, and manufactured homes includes both types of housing.
Yes. I think we ought to keep it.
Yeah, I don't, I'm trying to find the problem here, I'm not seeing it. Okay. All right, mobile home park,
It's just. I put this in here, I don't know exactly if now's the right time to address it, or if we address it when we start working through the subdivision ordinance and just like deal with all these things at the same time. Because you basically, I think if you have.
are you gonna have any, are you anticipating that there would be different standards for the subdivision for manufactured homes?
Well, there could be in the law, there are,
In the state law?
so we may need to just like do a full on,
We, at long last, get to do the subdivision overhaul?
Yeah.
Law overhaul?
yeah, and then there'll be some like LUZO changes related to that. I'm kind of thinking like, can we just let's simplify this year's approach and then like deal with it all, deal with all the other stuff. But like, you should add the term mobile home park lot. You should have a term called mobile home subdivision.
But you don't wanna put that in there this year if you
Oh, we
don't
can add it
actually
in.
have,
But then we
if it's not actually in the
Then we gotta
subdivision.
look, we gotta look at the subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, we gotta amend that,
So that I
so
don't want-
you don't wanna refer to something that isn't there.
Yeah,
correct, although you could do it's really kind of silly, because if I came in and did a 3-lot subdivision. I can still put 3 mobile homes on,
how's
One
that
on each
different
lot.
with land development?
It
I
isn't.
mean, like,
there is no difference. There's also no difference between. We don't have any separate standards for like saying, hey, I wanna do a mobile home park and really just have these lots that are much smaller. I don't think you could do, I don't think the standards are there to allow you to do that right now.
Is the law requiring that you allow them, the new law?
well, it says we can, we just say may apply the design standards for them. By this section to all manufactured housing, it's under the it's under the, for providing one or more zones or locations where mobile home parks or mobile home subdivisions or developments are allowed. And then it talks about, you may add standards. Which I don't think it's any different than a review of a subdivision.
It isn't, shouldn't be.
You still have water, wells, septic. Roads, don't do. Different.
It says. And this is already in law, except as required under Title 38, blah, blah, blah. An ordinance adopted pursuant to Title 38. Some other things, a municipality shall not require. The size of any mobile home park lot served by public sewer systems to be larger than the smaller of 6,500 square feet. Or the area of the smallest residential lot permitted in the municipality.
So that's anything on town sewer and water,
And
which
then,
limits
and
that.
the next one is number two, the size of any mobile home park lot. With on-site subsurface wastewater disposal to be larger than 20,000 square feet, or
So
the
it's
size of
half
any
acre.
mobile home park lot served by a central on-site subsurface wastewater disposal system approved by the DHHS to be larger than 12,000 square feet, provided that a municipality may require that the overall density of the mobile home park be no more than one home for every 20,000 square feet.
So is that like a half
I think,
acre or
actually
something?
don't think.
Does
we have
that,
these standards.
does that allow shared septic?
Doesn't say anything about shared septics.
Well, it does if you get the a permitted system.
Well, if it's an engineered system, it would probably be a shared, but you can't, in the ordinance, our subdivision ordinance, you can't have shared septic systems. The systems have to be on the lot if served,
Which is something else that we have to work on.
but that's, I'm just saying with that you typically a mobile home park, you think they would have a shared system, you
Mm.
typically be like one big lot with lines and lines of mobile
Mhm.
homes, typically.
But the size of the lots here, they're talking about like 20,000, 20,000,
Yeah,
that's almost a half acre,
well,
right?
20,000 square feet's a lot area, lot size for a lot, for a septic system.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, when I look at this, and I'm not familiar with like the rules and the thing that we're supposed to repeal. Cause I didn't know we had this. So I think what this law says is these are the standards that you need to allow for mobile home parks
Mhm.
in your ordinance. You could hold 6B12. You know, and then use that as these standards. Eventually. In relation to the things that we have to think about subdivision, and I would also say, if we're trying to make home building, easier, we should
Mhm.
do something about the rule that doesn't allow you to have shared septic systems on a lot.
Mhm. So what are you proposing that we should do this year, right now?
Well, this year, I mean, if it's easy, I would add these standards in, but I don't think we're gonna get to it.
Those standards that you're holding in your hand, not the
Yeah.
ones we have.
Correct, but then we'd have to add these definitions that I highlighted earlier. That are in this proposal.
Right. And they would add to the subdivision ordinance.
Nope, I would put it in the LUZO. And then in subdivision if we needed to, but subdivision is basically a division of 3 lots. But I still don't think you could do a 3-lot mobile home without park, without doing the subdivision. Cause it's, but so then that's a question for Dr. Our attorney about. So at this
So
point,
what are
not to
currently
be
the-
too confusing about it, because I know this is what we're confusing. It's getting confusing, but I think what I would simplify this is saying, the first cut would be 6B12 is coming out.
Yes,
And I might put reserved, so that we're not messing up the order of everything.
right,
And then we can use that reserve for next time or for another proposal that deals with any land use ordinance standards that we need to add for mobile home lots. Or park. Then the second thing I'm gonna do on this one is 6B14. We're just gonna amend as noted. And maybe add the term, not to exceed a total of 90 days.
well, that's already there,
It isn't,
Not exceeding 90 days.
not exceeding 90 days.
but to clarify. A total of 90 days, so we don't get to Katrina's question of, is that in the calendar year or? is it-
Oh, okay. I don't know why it would ever be interpreted as, that would ever be a question anyway. I don't.
Because-
You don't issue permits by the calendar year. Right,
something you do, but I think it's usually pretty clear. what you
Yeah,
want.
okay. Or you can put total in if you want.
And then in one of these proposals, I do think we should have the definition that is underlined in the proposal, in the draft that you're looking at.
Yeah.
For manufactured homes / housing.
And that is state
Yep.
law,
It's right from the law that I was just looking at.
okay,
And then forgetting about all these other. Forgetting about mobile home park, although. Yep, may want to modify that definition. Forgetting about mobile home park lot or mobile home subdivision or development.
temporarily forgetting about it,
What was that?
temporarily forgetting about it.
Yep. The residential dwelling unit definition should change from mobile homes to manufactured housing.
Okay,
And then I might ask this question. Under recreational vehicle, the definition that I have as a discussion item. Do we think that's better than the definition that we have now? So that says. Recreational, a vehicle type portable structure without a permanent foundation that can be towed, hauled, or driven. And is permanently designed as a temporary living accommodation for recreational and camping purposes.
is that currently in the LUZO, is that what you're reading?
I'm reading the pink.
Oh.
Off to the side, the one that's in the LUZO is different. It's probably not as big a deal, but I kind of like this definition better.
Oh, there it is, sorry,
Last page, yeah.
Yeah, and then the ordinance has, under that, their current definition of recreational vehicle, that's.
Yes, it says a vehicle or an attachment to a vehicle designed to be towed and designed for temporary sleeping or living quarters for one or more persons, and which may include a pickup camper, travel trailer, tent trailer, camp trailer, and motorhome. In order to be considered as a vehicle, not as a structure, the unit must remain with its tires on the ground and must be registered with the state division of motor vehicles.
and. Why do you prefer the one in pink?
I just think it's simpler.
I like the one vote.
Like
In
the
order
one,
for it to be considered still a vehicle, it has to be registered.
yeah,
But you
that,
have to use the word currently registered?
So if there's no problem with it, then let's not
That would make sense.
carry on with the discussion.
No,
okay,
that would make sense.
okay,
How do you, I mean, if you're not registered, if you're not currently registered, are you registered?
no,
You can't be registered if you're not current,
Okay.
technically. All right, so really,
Okay.
no sense to stress, I just was in the weeds on definition.
so,
Okay,
so we're gonna leave that
So,
as is.
there isn't gonna be a whole lot going to town meeting this year. LUZO stuff.
That we've noticed,
Huh? No, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Do
so
the
for
solar
this
stuff.
mobile home stuff, though, I do wanna talk to Andy about it. But what that would mean is a larger discussion. About like, here's all these standards that are in state law.
Yeah.
That we have to put in the ordinance somewhere.
And
So I don't think I think we'd better off just to do it and have more time to like. Talk about it, but it is in the context of trying to make. Better, like these housing, this is a good housing option, and how do we need to roll that out in the town of Rochester?
right, and this law is already in effect?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was already, I mean, I didn't.
went into effect 6 months after
Yeah.
But
we
it,
signed it.
So-
actually, the law
Mhm.
that I'm talking, the standards that I just read to you
Yeah.
were not amended because of the state law, the new law that came out. It looks like what they did was they just made it a requirement for everywhere.
Hmm.
You just have to allow them. Like,
Hmm.
there's the version that I have, where I can give it to you, but you
Mhm.
just go in. You can see where the underlines and strikers are,
Yeah,
and so. What they added wasn't all the same.
I think you read it to us a bit ago, didn't you? I think you read,
What's that?
I think you read it to us a few weeks ago, months ago,
don't
I
think
think,
so.
so Kim, someone did to us, yeah, or maybe it was Kim, yeah.
So we can. We do need to deal with it
Mhm.
longer term,
Yes,
so we should put it high on the
But we
list
do
for
need to
2020,
repeal.
the next town meeting.
right, that's what I thought I was hearing you say. And then-
70.
Yes,
Mhm.
but the other thing that I don't have before you
Mhm.
is just a repeal and replace of the 1970s warrant article that Kim showed us the last meeting that you weren't here. And I just need language from Andy to like, how do we write that up? And like, do I need to retype the whole warrant?
We're talking to Andy this Thursday.
Okay,
You know, because
Mhm.
that's not a thing that anybody can find except Kim.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
this will be clear. I'm gonna try to get the warrant committee and the planning board up to speed too.
I'll be here.
Good. We'll hold hands. All right, energy systems.
Yes.
Um,
So again, the 101 on this one, Gail, is we're creating a standard, like a section in the ordinance. And some standards for solar energy systems.
Yep.
So there's definitions that define what is a solar energy system, what kinds of solar energy systems there are. There's roof mounted, there's ground mounted. And then the ground mounted ones are both small scale and medium scale.
mhm.
There's a change to the table of allowed uses that tells the town where those systems would be allowed. Roof mounted are allowed by right anywhere.
Right.
You don't need a
Mhm.
permit for those. The small scale ground mounted systems require a permit through the code enforcement officer. And the medium scale ground mounted solar energy systems require a conditional use through the planning board.
Mhm. Right, right.
And then the ordinance, we're creating a new section called 6B23 solar energy systems, and these are the standards that you have to follow.
Right.
So it's not a new ordinance, it's an actual, just integrated into the existing land use ordinance.
And when I sent you a note, then the only question I had about this was in the application review for a medium scale solar energy systems on the site plan. Which is, B. 2. Do we want to include the requirement that they put any fencing on the site plan?
Sure, it's up to you guys.
Thank you.
Or you're gonna, so that would be what the section that you're referring to is,
The site plan showing proposed changes to the landscape of the site,
Yeah.
grading, vegetation, clearing and planting, exterior lighting, screening vegetation or structures.
right. So you're just saying, you're suggesting that in this, when I'm coming in before you as an applicant, if I'm proposing fencing, I should put that on the site.
Yes.
Yep, that's fine. I already
Yeah,
have
that's, yeah. That's the only other change that I came up with.
Yep, and then at the end, we have, I'm not sure how to resolve your other question, but we should talk about it.
Okay,
So I think, like, through the progression of us talking this through. What I've looked at a bunch of times and it's really helpful for like you, and then we can talk to the planning board about this, like, make sure. You know, the structure of how we have it laid out actually makes sense. and
Right.
works.
right.
Cause I popped it around a few times and I just. Think it works.
I think it were, I liked it when I read it today. It seemed more streamlined, it seemed
Yep,
more straightforward and.
yeah,
Then again, I'm not in the business of designing or building solar energy systems, so I didn't,
Well,
so, but if
you
I'm
have-
missing something fundamental,
a Climate to Thrive has seen a copy. of
Yes.
the last version. I
yes.
need to send them this just cleaned up version, which I
Yep.
will do. The models are based on some stuff that they pulled together early on, plus, and that I think was based on something that Maine Audubon had put together. I mean,
Yep.
so like most of these standards aren't, we didn't just make them up.
Right. Right. And do you think that when you have the discussion the last month, you felt, people felt fairly comfortable about the direction we're heading with this? Did you?
Yep.
Any questions? Okay. All right. I think that works unless. And you're just gonna check on I just didn't get why the numbers,
I need to check on that. I actually, in my note, I just put it as 1 year, can we just call it 1 year instead of putting, just to be consistent?
one is 1 year and one is 365, and
Yeah,
I know technically sometimes it's 366, but. I think you meant a year,
well, that's just the way it was, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, is there anything else? We do have the planning board meeting tomorrow, and we will be going through all of this with the planning board. And hopefully get some feedback there. And then as we were talking about before the meeting, the schedule is, I gotta find it.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, January 21, that's today, January 22 planning board, February 10. Board of Select meeting, review draft warrant articles. I'll be there for that, anybody else is welcome. February 11 warrant committee meeting, review warrant articles, I'll be there for that, everybody, you're there, anyway.
Yep.
Planning board public hearing, February 12th. And then we got a backup public hearing on the 26th. And then back to the warrant committee for final votes, so.
Yep. So more than likely by the 12th, we're done.
Yes, yes.
But between now and then, there's like every week.
A little bit to
Yes.
do, and then we want, because the goal was to go to the planning board and get the planning board to understand. And feel comfortable with what the proposed changes are, so that before we went to a public hearing. And not have changes showing up at the public hearing. For the first time,
Correct.
or have planning board members who are just dialing in and saying, oh. What about this problem?
You're on planning board, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it would be, I think. Nice to avoid those sorts of last minute oopsies.
I was gonna say, how are you feeling? I guess that's.
Oh,
it.
good, I like how it's going.
Okay.
I mean,
So I mean, any
And
direct,
this is the only thing we're talking about tomorrow, unless somebody has something else to put on. the
No,
agenda.
it's just a kind of an
That's us.
informal
Yeah.
meeting.
that's it.
Yeah, this is the only thing on the agenda. I mean, we have to do it because we have to,
I think it'll be
think that-
good.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
always
we-
helpful when we do that.
we won't be long.
So the draft warrant
Okay.
articles this year should be done in the public's, in the town office and online before the 10th of February.
Okay,
And so probably before the end of January, we'll be all wrapped up. But we have,
We need them available.
we have
for
to,
the
like-
public and put them online.
yeah, because we have to Kim and I just have to go over stuff with town's attorney.
and
After today, I'm gonna send him these drafts tomorrow morning, and then we're meeting with him on Thursday.
so this board shouldn't have to meet again about these issues. I mean, I'm happy to talk with you.
I don't think.
And the planning board won't be meeting again after tomorrow until the public hearing. So,
I think so.
welcome. We're almost done.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
That's it.
I mean, they're really not that complicated.
no, it's a pretty slim down agenda for this year. Maybe
What's
we'll get
today's?
thanks for that. I don't know.
I think it's good sometimes to,
Yes, yes, because we really should dive in. I'm still eager to get back and do the subdivision ordinance. Sounds like there's another reason to do it now.
there's, I think, yes, I agree.
A fairly compelling reason. And we've got to straighten that out.
And I would like, in the context of that, I think it would be nice to have a conversation with what things policy wise. You know, even though we're working on the comprehensive plan, what things do we need to brainstorm about to make housing development more what we think it should be?
That yet?
Right.
Comprehensive
Right.
meetings.
Housing, or the comp plan would be like, what kind of housing do you want where?
Right.
What day do
So
you have
that's
them?
housing that's appropriate, but we have tools in our toolkit to make development better? And what kind of?
At least the
how we-
process of permitting development better.
That's what I mean. Yes, the regulatory structure can be streamlined, but also let's have a conversation like what, you know, are we incentivizing housing in the wrong way?
Right.
You know, are we making it easier in some areas, but that doesn't help the goal.
I think that's fine to do at the LUZO. I just, I think that those kinds of discussions need to be in other venues too. I mean,
Absolutely will be.
they need, it needs to be at the select board. It needs to be at comp plan.
Definitely gonna be a comp plan discussion.
Good.
But I think things like. When we have a discussion about where septic systems are allowed, like why can't you have? a
Common
clear
septic, combined septic. system.
Combined system,
It's in the subdivision ordinance.
so weird. Yeah. But if
Right.
me and my neighbor wanted to combine systems, we could do that. Yep. Even though it's.
Well, you can have a
It's gotta be
tie-in.
served on the lot, it's serving.
Get it?
Well, that's to tie into sewer, right? You
not
can have a
septic.
tie-in.
Septic. It's not about septic.
Yeah. But you can do it, you can do a sewer tie. To another lot, can't you? Through another lot.
You can with like sewer easements and.
Yeah,
Piggybacking, you have to get
yeah,
public works approval first.
but that's just for sewer, not for septic. Okay,
And nothing to do with that.
I'm super curious whether.
Okay. I think that's it.
You know,
And I think we can
people, subsurface wastewater.
technically entertain a move to adjourn if nobody else has anything to say. I'm not sure if our online guest has
Not
anything. I
sure
haven't heard
either.
anything.
I think Todd's good.
Okay. Okay.
Done.
Yeah.
All set?
Yeah. We will adjourn. I don't think we need a
I don't
vote.
see it online
And
anymore.
vote,
Hmm?
don't you vote?
We usually do, but it's
It's fine.
yeah,
Good, okay, yes, yeah.
we're not a